And hello, I am very delighted to welcome Araleena Isse to join me today. Araleena is a very experienced degree qualified naturopath and metabolic balance practitioner. Hello, Araleena.
Hello, Cherry. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's really great to chat to you today. So you brought MB into your practice, which is in Reservoir, Victoria. You brought MB into your practice last year, April 2023.
Right.
Can you just maybe sort of paint a picture about what brought you to be interested in metabolic balance as such an experienced naturopath?
Well, what I started to notice was that I had a lot of patients where I was getting a lot of improvement in their health, but I wasn't necessarily able to graduate them. So they would need to come and see me for a really, really long period of time. And we would be working very hard against the tide of their symptoms. So every visit would be dealing with a different set of symptoms or the same set of symptoms, but it might take a number of years to get them to a point of really good health. And then I would be sort of expecting them to then graduate, and not to need to see me as often or at all, but they wouldn't necessarily graduate. They would need to see me on and on and on. And they would need to take a fair amount of herbs and supplements to maintain that good health that we'd found. And so I also noticed that this happened more in patients that were carrying more weight. And I started looking around initially for a solution, a weight loss solution for people who had chronic health conditions, basically. And I did quite a lot of research, and eventually I stumbled across Metabolic Balance. And as soon as I started reading about it, I got really interested. And I was like, ooh. And I said to myself the same thing that a lot of my clients say, which is, no, this is too good to be true.
Yeah. That's actually part of our problem.
No, it couldn't be true. Yeah. It couldn't be true. But there was enough information there that really piqued my interest. And so what I did was I booked a call with you. And after I'd spoken to you, I was like, now I'm really interested. And I eventually took the leap to study to become an MB coach. And even doing the study, I found very interesting, because what I found was a lot of what I was learning was what was missing out of my degree in naturopathy. Like all the pieces made sense because I was like, oh yeah, I remembered that. Yes, I use that bit of information all the time. But putting it together the way that Professor Funfact puts it together, and it all started to make sense. And I'm like, it was just lining up the ducks for me. When I came out of the training, I felt really confident. I applied Metabolic Balance to myself. And part of my driver for becoming a practitioner and studying it was that I was, beyond mid-40s, let's just say that.
We should always celebrate our age.
And I noticed around the mid-40s was when I started putting on weight, and I was putting on a kilo a year at least. And so I wanted a solution for myself as well, because I ate exceptionally. I ate really, really well. My health was good, but I couldn't stop putting on a kilo a year. And when I started eating metabolically, all of that just fell away. And I have never really worried about my weight since in the same way as I did. And when I started applying it to my patients, that's when I was like, wow, this makes
that's really cool.
profound difference in so many of the cases that I work with. And many of my clients suffer from very complex diseases. And what metabolic balance does is it lets me, basically it turns the tide and we can actually get into the ocean much more easily.
That's a really cool, interesting way you've described it. So yeah, so do you want to turn the tide? Just sort of fill me in a bit more with what you mean by that.
Now that I've worked with metabolic balance for almost a year, what I realise is that the way people eat, what they eat, and the way they eat it, even if it's healthy food, can lead to a lot of inflammation, unnecessary weight gain, poor digestive function, hormonal problems. And this is sort of like the tide. It's just where they're everyday eating, every single day, what they're eating is leading to these issues. And then as a naturopath, you're trying to fight against the tide of just what they're eating, let alone what's happening at a deeper level. And so once I get them eating metabolically, and it doesn't have to be perfect. That's what I love about the metabolic balanced diet. It just needs to be good enough. And once I get them eating good enough, then there's a resolution. Their gut is functioning better. Their detoxification systems are functioning better. They are carrying less weight. There's less inflammation. And then we can really get in and go, well, what's left? What's here that's not the way you're living and eating, that is in fact the disease that you're suffering from? And so I get to work in a much more focused way. I get to see my treatments working more effectively and faster. I get the trust of my patients more as well, because I think that people that struggle with inflammation, weight, and chronic digestive issues, they've tried everything usually. They've tried a lot of things and not much has worked. And so when you have something that works, it really earns trust.
It's actually really special when you know that you can actually do something with such genuine conviction as well, that what I'm suggesting here is actually in your best interests, not just to keep taking money off you, that type of thing, because it's not what we want as practitioners at all, is it? You want to help.
Well, the thing is that people see me now for less time and ultimately less often, but they refer more people.
You get to help more people essentially as well, don't you? You actually really do get to have more of impact.
Like for today, for example, I was speaking to a client who has tried many treatments over the years and hasn't always has had a very small to moderate success and not a long-term success with those treatments. And so she was quite hesitant, but because she's known me for a really long time and she had seen the success of another patient of mine who had been through metabolic balance, she took the leap of faith. And now she's like, oh, I can see my sister, my friend, my cousin, my parents, they all need to see you as well for metabolic balance. And so because you're having this profound impact, and it's something, the metabolic balance package that you offer basically changes somebody's eating for life. It's not just a 2-week, a 2-month or a 6-month program. You actually give them the skills to eat for the rest of their life. And so once somebody is a month or 2 in, they start to realize this, like, I know how to bring my inflammation down. I know how to address weight gain. I know how to
Mm-hmm.
address my gut, and I also can eat out, and I can work out what meals to eat out. And they start to realize that you're actually building a wealth of knowledge within them about their own body. And
Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you just said about. Sorry, just want to just pick up on something there, because the learning that people have, but also the recognition that it's incredibly achievable and doable for the long term. That it's this. I think I mean, like, what? How do you feel? Or, like, let me ask you this. Um, a lot of the time people are almost scared to do lifestyle changes because they think they're going to be hard or too big or too much of an effort.
yes,
What would you say about that with metabolic balance?
I actually think that metabolic balance is the most straightforward and easy to apply food guideline that I've ever seen in 20 years of naturopathy. It is far
It's good, isn't
easier.
it?
It
Yeah,
is far easier to
yeah.
apply. In fact, most of my clients say it is the life hack that they've waited 40 years to find.
Mm-hmm.
And
It clarifies things so much, doesn't it? Yeah.
simplifies food choices. It can be adapted to any style of eating, any cuisine, um,
Mm-hmm.
any
Mm-hmm.
preference for eating is so easily adapted because I call it um, it's actually not restrictive. It's really telling you
Mm-hmm.
what foods best support you, and then gives you an opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
find out what foods are, work well for you and what other foods don't
Mm-hmm.
work well for you. So you end up eating in the long term on metabolic balance, you end up eating very broadly. And in fact, most of the
Mm-hmm.
time I will see people's diets expand, naturally sort of expand,
Yeah.
and they're eating from a
Yeah.
much broader palette of foods. I commonly use metabolic balance for people who are having allergic reactions to foods, and they will
Mm.
often comment on how their tolerance to foods has increased so dramatically and their ability to eat what
Almost that they weren't expecting that to happen either. Sometimes it's a real shock to them, isn't
is
it?
very.
That suddenly they are tolerating food so much better.
And so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other thing that I love about the amount of change is that as a practitioner, I actually get to control the amount of change that somebody has to face. So I do have clients that are really
Okay.
scared of changing, and where we will just address
Mm-hmm.
one meal at a time. So we'll move them really slowly onto the
Yes.
plan.
Yeah.
And so I really like that
Mm.
about metabolic balance. It's really easy as a practitioner to
Mm.
craft the introduction and to really find out what
Mm-hmm.
somebody needs. What do they need? What are they going
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do? And then once I have their plan, I can know, right, I'm going to introduce it this way or that way.
Yeah. I think that's even described so beautifully why it's a practitioner only program as well, though. Because this is not just about a plan. Okay, everybody follows it in exactly the same way, because that's it loses. That's not what what we want. We want to truly see a person as an individual, which we do with MB, and then actually support them in the right way for
I
them.
think it's quite exciting because it's a tool. It's not you just apply this. I've had
Mm,
many patients that I work with, they suffer from very complex chronic diseases, and I have to apply the plan really intelligently and
mm,
really articulate every part of the plan. And they really, you see people really appreciate that.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, because again, they're it's truly adapted to them. They see it's about personalized nutrition. I mean, it says it all, doesn't it? It's about really personalizing it.
It really does.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
you teaching them as you go along. That's the beauty of it,
mm,
is that as you go along, you say,
yeah,
okay, try this and see what happens and report back. And they try it and they're like, oh, that worked, but why? And then you're able to explain, well, I know, but
mm,
this is why it worked. And
yeah,
that,
mm-hmm,
for me, that's the juice, because I'm educating people about their body rather than just prescribing something that I understand.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would also love now to hear from you just a couple of your favorite clients or client success stories that are jumping into your head at the moment.
My
Have you got some you can share?
all-time favorite client is, and I think this is a great case, is Jean.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
Jean is about 78. She
Okay.
into cooking,
Yeah.
does not
Yeah.
have a. She actually has some thyroid challenges, so already,
Mm.
she's got
Mm-hmm.
challenges that she faces there. And she had seen me for a long time, and she really struggled with her weight
Mm-hmm.
during that whole time. And
Mm.
we, working with herbs and nutrients, we'd reduced her weight by 6 kilos, but the weight reduction had ground to a halt. And she really is
Mm-hmm. So where was she when she started
80,
with you? So we
over
can put it in
85
context.
kilos. So she got down to about
Yeah.
80
Okay.
kilos.
And
She's just under 5 foot tall.
okay. So she's so quite
Very
little,
little
but
person.
yeah, you can see. Yeah. Okay. Mm. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
she needed to lose about another 20 kilos. And she was one of the patients where I was
Yeah.
like, I've got, I'm stuck. Like, how on earth? She eats perfectly. She follows everything that I say.
Mm-hmm.
We're using herbs. How on earth are we going to lose another 20 kilos?
Yeah.
Um, then I discovered metabolic balance. She was like, look, I don't like the sound of this. However, I do trust you. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. And then when I delivered her plan to her, she looked at it and, tongue in cheek, she's very cheeky, a 78-year-old. I hate you. And I was like, no, I've looked at the plan, Jean,
Yeah.
and I am aware that it's not what you would normally eat, is it? And she's like, no, I've never eaten any of this food. And I said, look, are you willing
Yeah.
to try it for 2 weeks? Well, I've paid a lot of money, so I'm going to give it a go. And after the two
Yeah.
weeks, she came and saw me as a follow-up, and she said, okay, I like you again. And I think that she did go on to lose a further 20 kilos and, or close,
Yeah.
I think 18 kilos further on top of the
Mm.
original 6. Um,
Mm.
and she continues to lose weight to her own immense surprise. She now weighs less than she did
Yes.
when she was in her 40s.
Yeah. And does she? And how does she feel? Because I'm always from. I love it how people feel.
Well,
How does she
so she's
feel?
gone from a 78-year-old woman who can't really think about holidays. She just, is in her own home,
Yeah.
and taking her dog for short walks. That was her life before MB. And now she does things like go on holiday to
Yeah.
Bali and
Yay!
go
I
on
love
cruise
it.
ships.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she wears bathers, and she hasn't worn bathers for most of her life. And now she does
Oh,
things
isn't
like
that
she goes
gorgeous?
to Myers and but goes in and no, she went
Yeah.
to DJs. Sorry, yeah, she went to DJs, and she said,
Yeah.
I felt so excited because I was going to try on bathers, and I
Yeah.
actually felt excited about it. And when I came out of the change room in the bathers to ask the ladies which ones looked better.
That's awesome. That is so good. I
So
love it.
she's
Yeah. I never get tired of hearing these stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I find that
Yeah.
that's one of my because and what she says is her planned foods were foods that she would never think of eating ever, but they now form the pillars of her diet, and she
Yeah.
loves them. She also loves the fact she's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can now go out with my family and eat a meal out,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about it. I can just enjoy it. And I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really
That's
the
what it's
gift that
about.
MB gives people. Um, so
Mm.
there's
Yeah.
that story. Um,
Yeah.
I've got so many. I really have so.
Oh, give us another one. Come on, give us another story.
Oh, so this story is about a client. Another client has worked with me for a very, very long time who has Crohn's disease. Where again, it
Yeah.
felt like
Mm-hmm.
that real tide of we were always dealing with very, very problematic bowels. So she would have green stools, mucus-filled stools. She yeah, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of gurgling, poor digestive function. I've done
Mm-hmm.
microbiome tests with her. We've done food allergy tests. I've worked with her
Mm-hmm.
for a really long time,
Mm-hmm.
and she has had huge
Mm-hmm.
improvement from naturopathy. However, again, somebody I suggest
Yeah.
MB to, she goes, well, look, is it just another one of your suggestions? You know, meaning they've all worked well. However, is it just another thing? And I'm like, well, I don't think so. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay, I trust you. Or I actually said, I didn't say I don't think so. I actually said it is not just another thing. This is actually really special.
Great. Yeah.
And she is 2 months into eating MB foods, and she has
Yeah.
normal stools. And I'm not having to
Yeah.
use herbs for her gut. Her immune system,
Yeah.
she suffered from chronic sinusitis um, and chronic sinus problems that's resolved by at least 50% just by changing what she ate.
Yeah.
And she has noticed that her food tolerance across the board has increased.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think that it's, in my experience, it's extremely helpful tool for naturopathy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not not all clients are open to change, but
Mm-hmm.
even a small window of openness to change, like so the two cases that I've shared, they wanted change, so they wanted their health to be
Yeah.
different, but they only had a
Yeah.
small window open for them actually changing.
Yeah. I think they didn't almost realize that they how much they really wanted it or how easy it was going to be. So they were kind of saying this could be hard. So is this worth it in some ways? Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So a
Mm.
desire to change this big, this big, and a window of
Yeah.
willingness to change this big, but even in those
Yeah.
clients, if
Yeah. It's because the results happen. That's the point, though,
exactly,
isn't it? As soon as you get results, then it's like, oh, oh, okay, this is worth it.
absolutely.
That's the
And
point,
when
isn't it?
people realize
Mm.
this is not about deprivation, it's not about
No.
never eating out. It's not about never eating
Mm-hmm.
treats. It's not about
Mm-hmm.
having to eat foods I don't like.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's actually about
Yeah.
making and eating food I enjoy, um, learning the principles of metabolic balance so that I can apply them enough of the time that I can get away with it when I'm not applying them. And
Yeah. Yeah.
then what can my body tolerate? And I'm often saying that to my clients. They'll
Mm.
say, can I do this or can I do that? And I'm like, well, what happens when you do it? Let's talk about that. And so teaching them to observe what happens in their own body and let that inform them as to what they should do.
Yeah. That's a beautifully put, because it's about actually giving somebody the actual almost there's a certain degree of control over your health at the end of the day. We don't do anything perfectly, but you know the boundaries you now want to live within based on the results you end up getting. Because we could all eat absolutely anything, but actually, how does it make us feel?
Exactly.
That's really what we ultimately want to know. But until you actually raise the potential of somebody, raise that level of health to a point where people even realize what their potential is so that they can judge it,
Yes.
well, they can't even make that informed
No.
choice.
No. And I often talk about MB like driving a car. So
Yeah.
we've got 4 phases, 4 gears, and I'm like, once you learn how to apply each phase, your body will tell you what phase it needs to be in. And you can do a mini reset at any time. One of my clients worked out, she goes, I can reset for a day and it makes a difference.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, it does.
Reset
Yeah.
for a meal.
Yeah.
And I think when people realize this, then that really gives them a huge amount of, it's like relaxed control. It's like, yes, it's a type of, but it's like the control you have when driving a car. Like we would rarely call
Yeah. As opposed to being on a runaway train, because that's actually a runaway train is sometimes what you find people feel like they're in when they first come to you,
yes.
isn't it? It's like I can't do anything about what my health is, the direction my health is going in. It's like you said even at the beginning, the weight was slowly creeping on, and it was just creeping on. That was
And
it.
despite it was creeping on regardless of how I ate. And I think that as a
Yeah, because
naturopath, I understood somewhat, but as a metabolic practitioner, I understand so much more about why that was happening.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that when that starts to happen to people, and I've treated clients where they've gained 10, 20 kilos in a year. And as a naturopath, I have not had the tools to address that. As an MD practitioner, I feel confident in addressing that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's exactly it. So, yeah, thank you. That's amazing. Is there anything else that you would love to share if somebody is thinking of doing metabolic balance? Is there anything you would just say to help them make up their mind?
I would say that it's been, even though I've spent 20 years eating well and focused on my health, I would say that changing my diet to a metabolic balance style diet has been one of the most profound impacts that I've had on my personal health. And I would also say that when I work with a client and I'm using a metabolic balance diet, that I know the magnitude of that positive impact it's going to have on their life. And so I get really excited. And
Yeah.
when I can still have a huge impact on people not using metabolic balance, but I know when I've got that in the toolkit that I can use with somebody, I know, right, we're going to get to some serious places seriously quick.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can potentially have those holidays in Bali like Jean has.
Exactly. I know they're going to be going from the couch to Bali.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Oh, that's just awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with me, Araleena, today. And I'm just, delighted to have you on board as an MB practitioner. And I think it's wonderful, all the people you're going to help. Thank you so
It's
much.
so exciting to work with MB. I'm really pleased that I took that leap a year ago.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm pleased you took the leap too. So that's my my goal is just to get as many people helped with MB as possible. I've been using it for over 10 years now, and I never get tired of hearing all the wonderful results people get. That's why I have the ongoing passion for it.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
wonderful.
just the results speak for themselves, and that's the thing about MB.
Yeah.
It's like, I think when you see the results on somebody else, that sparks hope in people,
Mm,
and then
mm,
they've still got to make the leap themselves and believe it can happen for them too. And that's a hurdle that some
mm.
people face, believing I can get the results that other people are getting. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm yet to see MB not produce these results.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Araleena.
Jerry, have a nice night.